Hi there, Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, level 2, the creator of SNAP survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. We're back with Sarah Morehart, licensed professional counselor at Claremont Mental Health, talking about Taylor Swift lyrics that are reminiscent of relational trauma. And we have had our top 5 list. Sarah had top 5, I had my top 5, and now we're on number 1. Sarah, what is your number 1 song that reminds you of relational trauma?
Well, Mandy, it was hard to get here, but I got here. It was a tough process of elimination, but my number 1 is Would've, Could've, Should've. And I'm very excited to talk about this song. It's a doozy. The first thing that I think of when I think of this song is power dynamics and the toxic relationship cycle. This song really positions the subject of the song in this position of power at the beginning of the relationship, with lyrics like, if you would have blinked, then I would have looked away, as if the subject has such power that just a blink would have been able to control the narrator's actions. You could have spit me out at the first chance, saying you could have, you subject, you had that power, you had that capability. And then at the end of that first verse, it's, if I was a child, did it matter if you got to wash your hands? So this sense of this person who has power, but gets away with it and just gets to wash their hands and they're clean of it all. And it didn't matter. This idea that this person is the one who had the control. And if you never looked my way, just a glance, if you subject had never looked my way, and then there it goes into the what I would have. I love the would've, could've, should've. Those words are so present in the language of survivors of these kinds of relationships. It's wild. But when we talk about the toxic relationship cycle in this song, there's a lot of moments where idealization is mentioned, as we've said in other songs. The narrator of the song even says about what they went through in the relationship, the pain was heaven. So there's an idealization of that experience. And then there's, Lord, you made me feel important, then you tried to erase us. That one line is a perfect example of idealize, then discard. You made me feel important, then you tried to erase us. What's really powerful about this song is that it's from the perspective of a survivor looking back over a decade later at what happened. And there's this frustration present in this song that really mirrors the frustration that's present in the healing process of a lot of survivors, of when even years later, even a decade later, the wound won't close. As she says in the song, the wound won't close. I still fight with you in my sleep. And the survivor still feels like they're permanently altered by the trauma. And the reality of it is, they are. Your brain is altered by going through trauma. Frequent references to a feeling of loss of self in this song that evokes this change that just happens when you have the loss of self, when you go through trauma. I miss who I used to be. The line that's really, 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 really heartbreaking in this song, give me back my girlhood, it was mine first. This loss of self and innocence of it was mine and I can't get it back. You took it from me. You're a crisis of my faith being brought in. It makes me think about the beliefs that are impacted when we go through trauma, and how you form almost new beliefs when you go through trauma and you can't go back to how you felt before. And the narrator of the song almost sounds like she's longing for, I wish I could go back to a time when I was on my knees, when I prayed. Those religious references, the narrator kind of shows how trauma can trigger necessary changes of beliefs. While part of her is mourning that she lost that faith, this was also a necessary change in her growing and seeing the world differently. I think also just bringing in those religious references just highlights and heightens the gravity of this song. I'm still fathoming kind of my feelings about this song, to be honest. It's there's so much in it, and it's a long song. There's a lot of lyrics. It's this pain that just keeps going. The wound won't close. I keep on waiting for a sign. Survivors think that they should just be able to heal magically. And this idea of waiting for a sign almost sounds like magical or religious type of thinking of keep on waiting for the wound to close, keep on waiting for a sign, but it's not. And that's what's really painful about processing trauma is you realize like you can't ever change that it happened. You can't ever change how it impacted you. You can only change how you react to it and how you view it and how you integrate it.
Yeah, this is a heavy one. It's talking about a loss of innocence. This person should have known better. The subject, who was older and wiser, that she's 19 and that they should have known better, that you did this anyway, that you kind of knew it was wrong, but you let it happen because it made you feel better, that she's been used, has been permanently changed, like you said, by what happened. I damn sure never would have danced with the devil at 19. So this is another religious reference where there's this loss of innocence, the loss of faith. Her childhood or her youth is being preyed upon, and she danced with the devil as a result. But that it was really just a glance, and that if that glance wouldn't have happened, maybe none of this would have happened. And I don't think that targets realize how much they are targeted. It does feel at times like it flew in with the winds of fate. You know, it does feel at times like that this just naturally came to be. And furthermore, maybe even that the target, it was the one pursuing. Someone's 19. They see this other person as being older, wiser, cooler, good looking, whatever. And because of the innocence, not able to see with clarity that this isn't okay. The older person in the situation should be the one to have the maturity to go, okay, she's cute, but this is not okay. What I'm about to do to this poor young woman is not okay. I have no intention of honoring her or protecting her or treating her with respect. I'm going to use and abuse because it makes me feel good. And then I'm going to discard and walk away, and not having the empathy to recognize that you shouldn't do that to someone. Those individuals that seek out targets, they look for qualities in them, and they're always the good qualities that they're looking for. It's not a mistake. It's not fate. It's not romantic. It's not because they have so much in common and that he sees something special in her that he hasn't seen in anyone else. It's none of those things. It's a big ego trip for the person who is the perpetrator in the situation. And then the target is left with the damage that is caused. Meanwhile, the perpetrator gets to wash their hands and walk away. And don't forget that they will have support lined up. Don't forget that they will have people that aren't going to see that they are a perpetrator. And then that messes with the target's head even more. Is, well, what, all these people seem okay with this, but shouldn't they be like, hey, that's not okay that you're doing that? But they seem all right with it. And then, well, maybe it was okay, but it doesn't feel okay. It's very confusing for the person who's being targeted. Don't think for 1 second that it's an accident.
The age thing is really powerful here, and that she keeps saying at 19. It's like being able to wash your hands because technically it's legal is really frustrating. And then it's when there's those technicalities, you as the survivor questions yourself. If you're like, oh, is that really okay? There's a song on Tortured Poets called The Manuscript where she references an age gap relationship too. And she says, you thought about how because he had said you were so wise beyond your years, everything had been above board. She wasn't sure. Now she's like refathoming. She's like, back then I thought, oh, because I was so wise beyond my years, everything was above board. Now I'm thinking back on it. And what's really powerful about this song is that the narrator and the writer, Taylor Swift, is looking back on this a decade later, now that she's in the age group of the person, the subject of this song, and now she's seeing it differently. It demonstrates how trauma feels different and how you think about your trauma feels different at different ages of your life. Different periods of your life, you'll think about it differently, and it might feel even more painful a decade later when you're like, I should have moved on for this, but because of the stage of my life I'm in and the age I'm in, it feels worse. It hurts more. I'm hurting for that younger me.
And I want to reference another line, which is memories feel like weapons, because the memories also change over time. As you're looking back, like you just mentioned, as you're looking back and you gain your own, life experiences, and now you have a frame of reference, you're the same age as that person was, all of those things come together and you replay everything in your mind. And I would say as time goes on, some of those moments that we were discounting and minimizing as, age doesn't really matter, because I was mature for my age. And so, it made sense. And I was the one that sought his attention. But then as you get older and you recognize things we didn't know before, those same moments are like, that was not okay. That was not okay. Never at any moment was it okay. It was always not okay from the beginning. It's hard to go back and not feel those painful feelings as you play those tapes over again. And it's almost like the more mature you are, the more growth you've done, the more you see how wrong it was. It can become something then that you have to come to terms with, and whatever shame you're feeling over your own participation, you have to recognize who was the adult and who was supposed to be the one to say, you know what? This is not a good idea. What it took for that person, now you're in their shoes because you're their age now or past their age, what it took for them to put aside their own moral compass, if they even had one, and make this all okay, even though it wasn't.
It's only going to get more upsetting because I think I know what your number one is, Mandy. Process of elimination.
This song is my number one for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is because there's some anger here, and I do like the righteous anger. I like how we're putting this person in their place. I like how we're cutting them down to size, and pointing out, I see your tricks, because there is a feeling of recovery here at the same time. And there's some vicious clarity happening, and how she's able to weave so many meanings into one phrase is another reason why I'm so in love with Taylor Swift. And this song does that. And that is The Smallest Man Who Ever Lived. Can't get enough. We talked about future forecasting. We talked about love bombing. And we also talked about the manufactured soulmate. And it seems like that the narrator has a lot of experience with that manufactured soulmate, and points it out at the very beginning of the song. Was any of it true? You showed up in a Jehovah's Witness suit. Who the fuck is that guy? Like, who was this person that showed up? Because that is not the person that is here now. Now you know what it feels like. So he's getting ghosted by some people. And so that shows you that that's something that went on, is this kind of ghosting withdrawal, where the person stonewalls and dips out, and you think you're going to go hang out together, but then they don't answer you for a day and a half, and then like, oh, I forgot to charge my phone, or oh, my phone's broken, or oh, I left my phone at somebody's house, and the whole time the idea is that reactive piece that we've also discussed, that the person who is ghosting is really wanting to get you revved up and make you worried and to consume your mind. It's a form of psychological abuse to make someone worry and wonder what's happening, and then not answer them and leave them floundering. And so now you know what that feels like. Yeah, good. Let's do some of that. I like that. I don't want you back, but I just want to know, like, was it your goal to rust my sparkling summer? So we know that there's some timeliness happening here, where we are looking forward to something. It's an event. Abusive people have a tendency to sabotage our good moments, our birthdays, our holidays, our special moments. We did something good. We got an award. We got a new job. We were going for a job interview. We have an exam. they will sabotage those moments because they just can't handle you having attention and you being at the top of your game, and that you might become obvious to everyone what they know internally, which is you're too good for them. They don't want you to know that, and they don't want everybody else to know that. They also don't want to follow a social script. The social script would be that you show up, you're supportive, and you're there. You have a presence that is supportive. You're not taking the person on a roller coaster. You're giving them stability. You're giving them honesty, transparency, and support. But instead, they do the opposite because they don't want to be tied to a social script. It makes them feel like that they're not as powerful as they think. So like, say if you're sick, what are we supposed to do when someone is sick? Right? We're supposed to help take care of them, make sure they have what they need, pick up some slack and be there. And so instead of doing that, someone might act like they're sick too. Oh, I think I'm sick too. And leave the other person to not be cared after because they cannot handle having to give the attention. So I like that we're saying, like, was it your goal to do this? And that implies intention. And I would agree, there was intention. There is intention when we don't show up for somebody when they're having their moment in the spotlight. You hung me on your wall. You stabbed me with your push pins. In public, you showed me off. But in private, you were stoned and absent. Out and about, it's, so there's a double life here. There's how they are in public, and then there's how they are in private. And that's also super true. Because when I arrived, I was your queen. But then you treated me like an also ran, which I looked up. And those are the horses that run in the race that don't really get named. They're just called also ran. So you're nobody. You show up and you're the queen, but then I'm bored of you now, right? And you didn't measure up in any measure of a man. Thank you, Taylor Swift, for that line, because we're talking about everything. So we're really cutting this person down to size, right? The smallest man that ever lived that didn't measure up in any measure of a man. But I don't want you back. I just want to know, did you do this on purpose? We're just, it's like, I don't want you, but like, I see your game, motherfucker. I see what you did. I see what you're doing, and I'm calling you out. Now, here we go. The bridge. It's all about the bridge on this song. Were you sent by someone who wanted me dead? Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed? Were you writing a book? Were you a sleeper cell spy? Like, who the fuck are you in my life that is sabotaging me and wanting me to fail? Like, was this your intention all along? Was to just try to damage me and cut me down? And once you confess why you did it, I'll just say good riddance. Like, I don't want to have you in my life at all. I'm just curious about how you got here. I'm looking at you, I'm examining you now in a way that I'm like analyzing you. And I would have died for your sins. So this is that endless empathy that we give, that I would give you everything. I would go to great depths for you. I would ruin myself for you. I would waste my time for you. Instead of dying for your sins, I just died inside. So here we have that death reference again, that these toxic relationships are lethal. They kill you. And I think what she means is that it's killing that innocence. It's killing that version of you that used to believe in love, that used to have faith, that used to, right? Okay, here we go. And you deserve prison, but you won't get time. Cannot be truer. Cannot be truer. Justice never happens here, unfortunately. And that's something we all have to come to terms with, is letting go of that need for justice and for truth to prevail and for our narrative to be, clear to everyone and that we aren't being mischaracterized. That's not going to happen. You slide into inboxes and slip through the bars. So that's like slipping through the bars of prison, but also the bars that we go drinking and prowling and in a predatory way for our next target. Sliding into DMs, and you're just on to the next game, essentially. You're not going to have any consequences for your behavior, and you're just going to continue with what you're doing with just someone else, because this is how you roll. This is the kind of person you are. You're the smallest man that ever lived. You don't measure up. You're a predator, and you're just going to carry on, and no one's going to stop you. You crashed my party and your rental car. So he's a fake. It's not even his car. It's a rental car. But you were gone by the morning is something that we also hear about in a reference to in the morning you were still there. When someone doesn't spend the night and doesn't wake up with you, that they're just using you. And that's what this person does. And you kicked out the stage lights, but you're still performing. Here I am supposed to be in the spotlight. This is my moment. You've kicked out the stage lights, but you're still on stage. You're still acting this role, trying to, seem like you're someone that you're not. And then here we have it. In plain sight, you hid, as they do. But you are what you did. Ugh. Okay, so what did they do? They manipulated. They lied. They misrepresented. So what does that make them? A liar, a manipulator, a grifter, right? You are what you did. Your actions are who you are. How you treat people is who you are. How you behave is who you are. And I will forget you. I will never forgive you. You're just the smallest man who ever lived. You're this big, just itty bitty. You're like a little chihuahua in a tidy purse, just barking. You're really nothing to me now. But I just want you to know, I know what you did. And now we all know. Thank you, Taylor. Sarah, how do you feel about this song?
You really nailed it in there at the end. That I'll forget you, but I'll never forgive always makes me think about how survivors often feel like in order to be healed, they have to come to a place of forgiveness. It's not true. If forgiving is an important part of your healing journey and your belief system, sure. But that doesn't necessarily mean you're not healed. I think there's a lot of healing in this song. Being able to take ownership and send these kinds of jabs at your ex is a sign that you are moving on. It really is. The lines in the bridge where she talks about, were you sent by someone who wanted me dead? Did you sleep with a gun underneath our bed? That really brings me to the paranoia that can be present. When you've gone through something like this, it's like, who can I trust? What story can I trust at this point? Because you told me all these things, you made all these promises, you manipulated me in all these ways, and then you didn't follow through. Anything could be possible at this point. And that's what's scary about going through these kinds of experiences. They can really impact your ability to trust and can lead to some degree of paranoid thinking. But the anger that's present in this song is really, really powerful and really healing, honestly.
It is healing, and it gets me emotional, but it gets me emotional in the ways of seeing someone sort of championing their situation and maybe rounding the corner a little bit on the other side of it, and recognizing the person for who they are, really, and no longer idealizing, calling it what it is. And I can't tell you how satisfying that is for me as a therapist who works with survivors, is when I'm seeing that clarity in the client, when they're able to say, oh no, that was this, and they should have never done that. And I see how they got there. They're able to see the situation more clearly and recognize that there was intent here. There was intent and there was wrongdoing. And this person did not have your best interest in mind at all. And they did use you. Those things are true. When we are still locked in and even trying to come out of it, we don't accept these truths about what we've been through. We still are trying to minimize. We're still trying to make it a little bit more okay. We're still trying to see the good. We're still trying to see the why. Well, they acted this way because this is about their childhood, and explaining it away. We still do some of that. But this song shows me somebody who recognizes that the person was just hiding in plain sight. That they were someone to be fearful of, that this is someone who could cause damage, but that they appeared as a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, they're still small. And that's healing. That's being able to view someone as the monster they are, but then acknowledge that me moving on means that you're not going to be big to me in my life. Like, I'm going to view you as small. In my grand scheme of my healing, my journey, my life, you're small.
Sarah, this has been so awesome for me to get to do this with you. I don't have anybody in my life who's also a Taylor Swift fan. And so our connection that we both love her music and love her the way that we do is something that I just cherish, that we share that and that we get to do this together. Yeah. And it makes me love you even more. I already thought you were super awesome and smart, but now I know you're really, really super awesome and really, really smart. So we had Taylor Swift songs that illustrate relational trauma, and we're connecting that to different themes and patterns that we have seen as therapists working with survivors of abuse, people that have been through relational situations that were traumatic, whether that left us with lasting PTSD or just lessons from the past that we can use in the present. Whatever the case may be, we just reviewed 10 songs and we ordered them from 5 to 1. And I think we did a pretty good job of it. So thank you for doing this with me. And I was wondering if you had any closing thoughts for our audience.
Man, I appreciate that we were able to do this. And I do feel like, you know, being able to talk about these songs, something has been resolved for me. It's good to get those thoughts out there. And I look forward to approaching and discussing more mental health related topics related to Taylor Swift with you, Mandy, because this is only the tip of the iceberg. I think there's so much more that you and I can get into, and I'm so glad we have this space where we can do it. Ultimate gratitude has to be to Taylor Swift for being so giving and personal in her songwriting, and being able to show her healing process so that those of us who have gone through similar things can feel seen. I think that's a really important thing, to feel like someone sees you, and music can be validating. That's amazing.
Maybe we'll see you again with other mental health related topics that we find in Taylor Swift lyrics. But until then, thank you for watching or listening. Goodbye.